For those of you who are new to our programming, we've given our writers a topic to consider and to present to you today. Copies of these presses will be available next week on our website at iwp.uiowa.edu, where you can also find biographies and writing samples from our writers and a schedule of our upcoming events. You can also find this information by scanning this QR code on the flyers, the side of the room, so be sure to pick those up. They're right over here. And now, I'm happy to present today's panel. In contrast to traditionally self-directed pathways into literary creativity, the call of the muse, today's literary producers are ever more like athletes, trained, practicing, coached, competing, hoping to win. How have you approached the specter of professionalization in your writing? Our first panelist is Kang Byoung Yoong, a Korean father, husband, fiction writer, novelist, essayist, and translator. He spent his youth in Seoul and Moscow, pursuing a PhD in literature, and has taught in South Korea and in Russia. He is currently the Korean Studies Program Chair in Slovenia. He has published several books featuring themes on humor, fantasy, diversity, and social problems. His 10 novels and his many stories often engage paradoxically with classics of world fiction. His participation was made possible by Arts Council Korea. Next to him is Chu He-Chih, a Taiwanese author of 8 novels, largely concerned with history and Taiwan's colonial legacies. He is the first recipient of the Romain Rolland Prize, given by Taiwan's Ministry of Culture, for his novel, Aura of the South. He has also twice been awarded the Hsing Yun Award for Global Chinese Literature for his novels, The Land of Paradise, and for Chiang Wen-Ye and The Singer of No Homeland. Chu's participation in the Fall Residency is made possible by the Taiwan Ministry of Culture. Our next panelist, Hien Trang, is the Vietnamese author of 2 novels, 2 collections of stories, and 1 of literary essays. Her writing, whether fiction or nonfiction, revolves around the surreal, haunting power of art and memory as a passageway for humans to find their true identity. Her most recent titles, both award-winning, are Chokbin Vanishes and Dreams of Wandering in Withered Fields. She works as a book, music, film, and pop culture critic with columns in major newspapers and magazines, and regularly translates from English. Her participation was made possible by a grant from the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs at the U.S. Department of State. Our final panelist is Chi-Chin Yan, a Chinese writer and translator who started her career when she was only 16. She has published a dozen titles, ranging from travel literature to speculative fiction, most recently, The iPhone Age. A winner of the People's Literature Award for Best Novel, she has had her stories appear in China's top literary magazines. She has also edited literary journals and translated from English. In her free time, she enjoys outdoor activities, art, music, traveling, and cross-cultural communications. Her participation was made possible by the U.S. Embassy in Beijing. Let's hear from our first panelist.
Is it okay? Maybe, yeah. Shirley, thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I'm so honored to be here with great writers in greater audience, and Shirley and Ili and Natasha, and so on. Louder, right? Okay, once upon a time, when I was really young, last century, in 1985, I met my wife. We are the primary school classmates. And she is currently primary school classmate. She is current my wife. It does not mean I have an ex-wife or something. So, okay. A few days ago, I got a message from my wife. That is my text. Okay. Title, very great. My husband, my handsome daredevil. In 2003, I married my husband. He introduced himself as a novelist, but I didn't trust him and told him that even though he is writing a novel, he is not official novelist if he has no published novel. After telling him, he changed it. For 34 days after dinner every night from 9:27 p.m. to 12:06 a.m., he was writing something in his room. He also tried to have a sex with me once every 2 days. Usually, our sex lasted from 12:07 to 12:31 a.m. You can laugh at it or you can laugh, okay? Feel free to laugh at me. In 2005, my husband's first novel came out. It consists of 17 chapters. For 34 days, he wrote one chapter every 2 days. The title of the book is Tales of Imaginary People. Yeah, this title comes from the book of Imaginary Beings by Jorge Luis Borges. Anyway, and in 2006, he published a collection of short pornographic stories. He said that it was about our sex life, but as far as I'm concerned, it is too dirty and too messy to about our sex life. The title of that book is, you can imagine why. Okay. In 2012, my husband wrote a story of a Korean middle-aged sad uncle imprisoned by his wife. But his editor, my editor, said the story had that sort of funny but not really funny tone, so it was impossible to turn it into a book. I, in the other hand, wanted my husband to write a realistic story. So, yeah, reluctantly, I really had to put him in custody. I imprisoned him at 고시원 for 3 months. 고시원 is a very, very small room that Korean student, a high school student or normally university student, lives in while studying for an important exam or important test. His 고시원 was around 3.5 square meters. This is about the size of an average American bathroom. For 100 days, that was where he lives without coming home, just like Odesu, probably you can remember, the protagonist of the Korean film Old Boy had eaten only Chinese dumplings in the private jail. My husband also only ate Chinese food, jjajangmyeon. This is sort of noodle with black bean sauce in his 고시원. The title of the book he wrote there is Assaulted Records of the Castration of Mr. Y. My name is Kang Byoung Yoong, Y-O-O-N-G. In 2013, my husband didn't read any books, only newspapers and articles while swearing at the president of Korea, the Republic of Korea, not North Korea. So whose nickname was the Rat. I asked him to stop doing that and to write a novel as a novelist should. He said that he would write a novel criticizing the president, but he never wrote a single sentence himself. Every sentence in it, in that novel, was borrowed or copied from newspaper articles. He called it fiction written in a mouse, not a keyboard, not a rat. The title of the book is You Know These Are All Lies, right? Yeah. The title also comes from the one of the infamous sentence by the rat, the president. Practically, I didn't criticize at all, just I copy and paste. On the cover of the book is a rat resembling the president rat. In 2018, my husband said that if he was given only 1 week, he could write one novel. I told him to give it a try. So he lied to his departmental officers that he was having stomach cramps and skipped work for 1 week. Yeah, surprisingly, his occupation is a university professor. Instead, he went into a room and locked the door. All he did was write a novel. Frankly speaking, I have no idea what he ate or where he put and peed for that week. A week later, as promised, he exited the room with one novel in hand. All the left behind was the stench of garbage. The title of the book he wrote there is My Each Middle Finger. In 2022, my husband told me that he is wearing his IWP writer hat will talk to the public at the Iowa City Public Library here about Specter of Professionalization or something. Honestly, I was rather worried, but he told not to be. He considered himself to be a diligent genius, meaning that he thinks of himself as a literary atheist who has been kissed by the muse. I am 100%, however, that he is lazy and stupid. No way does he know that professionalization of artists is. As far as I know, he is just a writer who loved to experiment, to find his own way to literature. He sometimes conducts experiments and sometimes became the subject of experiments. He is a daredevil who loves literature. But to be honest, I have no interest in his literature at all. I didn't marry him because he was a good writer. I married him because he was handsome. Yeah, thank you so much. As I told you already, so I have no idea of professionalization or something. But yeah, fortunately, at least I have my wife, whom I called my better half. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. Is that clear? Yes, okay. I make sure we share that each of us have 10 minutes, and Young used 8 minutes and 50 seconds, so I have 1 minute plus. I will finish my speech in 10 minutes correctly without a second more or a second less. I found an interesting thing. The organizer arranged 4 Far East writers to talk about this topic. From South Korea, China, Taiwan to Vietnam. We can simply draw a complete Pacific Northwest coastline without missing any section. I don't know if this means that those 4 of us look more like athletes than our more gentle writer colleagues. Yeah. And we can discuss this topic from 2 aspects. First of all, literary and artistic creation can never be separated from its context, whether it is cultural, political, or economic. In contemporary times, especially the operation of the capitalist system. For example, here in States, some agent would sign a 2-book deal for a rookie writer and a publisher. It is a win-win game. For the writer, if the first book doesn't get critical acclaim or sell well, he or she at least have a second chance to pull the trigger again. For publishers, if the author's first book is a hit, that's a profit because they already have the second book signed at a very low price. it's a mature industrial system, and writers are part of it. As with all artistic creations, classical musicians, film directors, and of course, the athletes we mentioned about here, even the most talented players can't make up their own minds and have to be involved in all the contract negotiations, health check reports, and never-ending trading deals that are the part of the game. But in such a small places like Taiwan, where the publishing industry has not yet matured and face the situation of declining reading energy, how say it? We sell books very poorly. In Taiwan, many newcomers rely to literary awards for their chance to become famous. Most of the writers have to have full-time job for living or grants provided by the government and foundations. Only people who are totally out of their minds, like me, choose to be a full-time writer. But the interesting phenomenon is that when there are fewer and fewer people buying books for some unknown reason, more and more people want to become writers. Writing classes sell out quickly, and teaching people how to write or write grant applications have become a lucrative business. Whether the situation in the States or Taiwan, I believe that muse will not like neither. So it's rarely found by people. Even so, the mature capital market operation system, we can still see athletes like Roger Federer, sorry I mentioned him first, and showing sportsmanship, or pianists like Martha Argerich showing off their talents. The muse must still be waiting somewhere. Maybe I'm going too far. Let's go back to the question, how have I approached the specter of professionalization in my own writing? One of my writer friends said the writer really needs the muse's kiss very much. Every day, he goes to the agreed place to wait, but he's always been stood up and wait until he is despaired. But if one day the muse comes on a whim and you just aren't there, but stay home and lying on the bed, play mobile games or hang out at the bar, she will turn away angrily and never come back. She can stew you up 100 times, but you only stew her up once and you're done. Just like things happened in love, or maybe in marriage. So, it is extremely necessary for a writer to go to the meeting place with muse every day and just wait. I totally agree with my friend because that's exactly my experience. I am a novelist, I must say, when you break into a realm of the long story, it's not just a fight. It's not even a battle to describe it. It's a war, a total war, draining every drop of blood and sweat to the end. Novel writing will require you to dedicate all your resources, all your mental and physical energies, your time and your life, your emotional experiences, your memories, thoughts, and the last bit of your willpower. It penetrates the darkest cavern of your unconscious mind, revealing traumas you don't even dare to look at yourself. People usually fantasize that writing is a romantic profession, drinking wine and smoking cigarettes, writing with inspiration. But the truth is, the novelist is more like gardener. As an ancient poem says, holding the weeds at noon, sweating the weeds down the soil. Whoever writes a long story has to be a tough guy. You can't just be a drunken jerk fighting the street. You have to be a warrior, able to endure a long fight never ends. And you have to survive day in and day out in extreme despair and self-doubt. The evolutionary biologist Stephen Good proposed the famous rival theory of evolution, pointing out that biological evolution has its limits. In my opinion, so does the novel writing. Humans have been already telling stories for thousands of years. And according to Milan Kundera, the modern novel was born in Don Quixote, published by Cervantes in 1605, and it has been 400 years since the present. The rival of the evolution of the novel is already there. The rival. And any subject and technical that you have thought of have already been thought of by someone, and they have thought it better than you. Contemporary literature is a highly mature craft. Like professional sports or classical music performers, you have to dedicate a lot of time and never stop to have even the slightest chance to make it. Haruki Murakami said that writing novels is a kind of heavy labor. And the famous Taiwanese novelist Luo Jun says that writing novels is an extreme sport. It requires training, practicing, coaching, and competing. Contest deadlines force you to push your limits and squeeze your work out, even if it turns out badly and you lose contest. After all, winning a first draft and the whole process of suffering. And the place of extreme despair, suffering, and self-doubt is where Muse and I made an appointment to meet. I went there day in and day out, exhausted and devastated, but I never saw her. At that time, to be or not to be is no longer a question. The only thing you can do is just keep taking the tough next step or die on the spot. But I can't miss the appointment with Muse if you insist on going there every day and move on with exhaustion and despair. Suddenly, you will realize for a moment that Muse is actually by your side, shoulder to shoulder with you, walking for a long time, even whispering in your ear. It's all so blissful that you don't realize that until Muse leaves a kiss on your lips before she left. You suddenly wake up and feel as if time just stopped. For those graceful, beatitude moments, I have to become an athlete, become a tougher man, become a warrior, and then, in the end, I become a writer. Thank you. Oh, I use 9 minutes and 46 seconds.
Hello, everyone. It's okay. To be honest, I came here with a burden hat. Yesterday, Roger Federer, my childhood hero.
Maybe turn on it or just borrow his.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Perhaps just
I don't think that is long enough. Hello.
You lost 30 seconds.
I'm
Hello,
not sure
hello.
what it-
Hello, hello.
Can you choose?
Yeah.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's
You
good.
work?
It's better, yeah. To be honest, I came here with a burden hat because yesterday Roger Federer, my childhood hero, the greatest sportsman in the history, decided to retire after 24 years of playing professionally. So I hope that my presentation today is not just about kids of news or whatever. I hope that it will be a small tribute to Roger too. The title is The Graveyard of Stories. This is the worst compliment that I ever gotten. You are so productive. How can you write several thousand words every single day and write as easily as hens lay eggs? I'm well aware that this person didn't mean to mock me, nor did they have ill intentions at all. In Vietnam, a country known for its agriculture, everything can be traced back to farming life. Writers love to describe themselves as humble farmers plowing in the fields of woods. There's such a simile in which a prolific writer is tacitly associated with a prolific breeder. It's not something unusual. However, being prolific is not that easy. Indeed, to me, the hardest part of writing is not the writing itself. Rather, the hardest part is settling down and starting to write. It's not the wicked critics being a writer's natural predator, but their procrastination to write. As it Nassins, my beloved humorist, he wrote a short story about a man who desired to become a writer. But he lived in such a tiny, cramped house that he didn't have personal space for creative thinking. He swore that once he got a room of his own, he would write a monumental work of literature. Then when he had it, he started studying and didn't find time for writing. Again, he claimed that after graduating, he would start to write. He graduated, but then he was drafted for military service. He left the army, but then he had to find a decent job with a stable income. The excuse went on forever. After starting a decent job, he needed a decent house, a decent marriage, and a decent position. Once he accomplished everything, he still couldn't write, because in Turkey there were so many fleas disturbing him. He wished fleas were extinct, and only then could he work tirelessly on his ambitious novel. I used to be like this character, believing in an impulse of creation and inspiration, something like a fleeting dream in which Paul McCartney heard the divine melody of yesterday. I once put my faith in a muse, but my faith was betrayed. Because a muse, if there is one, can be very much like a femme fatale. She's seductive, however, relying on her is dangerous. After all, Sir Paul has worked harder than any musician. I also think her tennis player Roger Federer, who is a perfect example of a genius combined with hard work. And I think that he's an athlete for sure, but he's more creative, more original, more inventive than any of us here. He always seems to create magical shots out of nowhere, and many say that no one can practice or be trained to play like Roger. Only he could do that because he was born with a racket in his hand. But as a longtime avid fan of Roger, I can say with certainty that he has devoted more time and effort to the sport than anyone. He said that he didn't want to waste his talent. It doesn't mean that I will opt for K-pop model literary industry where writers are formulaically manufactured and every piece of publication is a processed product. Being discovered by talent scout instructed as a trainee for 10 years before making a debut? Thank you, but not for me. Becoming a writer is a way for me to crack a hole, the miniature in a seemingly uncrackable darkness of an office worker's life. Becoming a writer machine will be no different than the metamorphosis of great god Samsa. Even though you transform into another kind of being, you will still be trapped in the same meaninglessness. But waiting for the revelation from muse can be a trap too. One can wait forever, like he said, and the muse never show up. And instead of waiting for the muse to flirt with me, I look for her in books, film, and music that I'm exposed to every day and flirt with her first. Maybe in the end, she will still have no interest in me. It's all right, because I will move on, find another muse to flirt with. Muses are everywhere. No one masters at flirting with muses more than Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I remember reading one of his short stories about a list of stories that he never finished, which he called The Ocean of My Unfinished Stories. Like most of us, Marquez had many good reasons to not finish a story. And he could articulate this reason so well. However, contrary to us, even the absence of a muse could become his muse. He found the inspiration to write even in the uninspired writings. Every time I look at my graveyard of stories, I will think of Marquez and realize that even the death of a story could give birth to another story. My latest novel, Chopin Vanishes, was written in a hurry to be in time for a literary competition in Vietnam and was built up from two other drafted novels that I had been hopelessly editing until that time. It tells about a detective who, while investigating a murder of an actress, came to know that the world of art was about to collapse. I intentionally wrote my main character as an amateur detective, also an amateur reader, an amateur piano player, and an amateur movie audience. Amateur, but passionate. He was indeed the only one who could communicate with a woman coming from a song, who could be deemed as a muse, and she revealed to him about the apocalypse of the world of art. Thus, he was the only one who had a slight chance to protect it. No professional artist could see the things he saw, because I believe that a muse was visible only to those whose eyes were ardently looking for her. Thank you.
Hello. Does this work? Anyway, I will try to speak louder. We made a comparison between writers and athletes, but we forget that there's a huge difference. In Olympic Games, like a ski skate or something, you want to be the last one to perform us, because the judge will evaluate everyone later. But as for writing, we're speakers. We is the nightmare to be the last one, because everything you want to say has been said. I really totally can resonate your opinions. I promise that my version is a shorter one, much shorter one. Okay. So the call of the muse versus the specter of professionalization. There are two kinds of writers in the world. Those rely on genius, while the other relies on hard work. Those based on imagination, and the others based on experience. Those who write in the morning, routinely, after a cup of coffee or two, while the other write occasionally at night, after whiskey, straight up, sometimes double. The list is never ending. However, we need to be wary of these classifications per se. The call of the muse versus the specter of professionalism implies that the need to put the two paradigms at the opposite ends. Yet I would instead perceive them as a question of precedence. Increasingly, we should focus on the bigger picture. How come professionalization gradually dominates the discourse of literature? What exactly is professionalization in literature? Who is professional writer and who is not? Shall we define these terms before having this discussion? So the core of the muse, in my understanding, is a strong urge to create something, an impulse to express, and sometimes a flicker of inspiration as well. It's impulsively yet randomly gifted in rare psyches ever since the beginning of civilization. The core fades so easily that it doesn't necessarily lead to a lifetime career. Caused by contemporary capitalism, the specter of professionalization is the result of commercializing the arts, literature included. It's an artificial mechanism that stricts literature into genres, books into categorizations and writers into competing, either for prices or for popularity. I still consider the urge for self-expression, such as writing, a unique instinct for human beings, but we approach it differently nowadays. Some are considered amateur, while the others are considered professional, a concrete distinguishment with vague criteria, ironically. So, in thousand years of history, there was no apprenticeship for writers, neither workshops or training programs, awards, let alone creative writing courses. The writing was purely a self-learning process, driven mostly by talents and interests. Many writers started their careers by reading or imitating and gradually find their way. Since the beginning of the 20th century, writing is gradually treated like a craft, learnable and teachable, and the quality of which seems standardizable and compatible. So for commercialized literature, books are products for sale. Thus, publishers become product managers and writers become producers and readers as consumers. It's a competitive market, aiming for sales and profits, almost like any other industry. Those who do not fit into that framework would rather compete for prizes and awards instead. My nightmares, in many cases, they compete for both sales and prizes. So to acquire certain reputation, writers not only have to take creative writing courses, participate book fairs, join residency programs like us, and workshops, but also have to work on social networking and promoting a process of so-called professionalization. So occasionally I ask myself, would you still keep writing without any single reader, without any possibilities of publication or getting rewarded? So Polish writer Olga Tokarczuk gave a wonderful speech at her 2018 Nobel lecture, saying that we began to divide the literature's Leviathan body into genres, which we treat like various different categories of sports, with writers as their specially trained players. Increasingly, genre work is like a kind of cake mold that produces very similar results. I have always intuitively opposed such orders since they lead to the limiting of authorial freedom, to the reluctance towards experimentation and transgression that is in fact the essential quality of creation in general. So for writers nowadays, unfortunately, neither only kissed by the muse or only haunted by the specter of professionalization is enough. I started at such a young age that I've been through the transition of both paradigms. A hobby doesn't lead to a career automatically. After being kissed by the muse, what are you going to do with it? Passions are fleeting. You will need the persistence and stamina to respond to that calling, which indeed sounds like a marathon, both mentally and physically. So in this regard, training, either by selves or by institutions, is necessary. However, I just doubt its priority. Focusing too much on the craft and techniques, we might forget that the essence of literature, like any kind of creative efforts, it should have been something ambiguous, boundaryless, and standardless. So nowadays, the tendency of over professionalization is prevailing. The market oriented writing has gradually dominated the course of literature. Books are written for film adaptations, for social recognition, for any higher ends except just for fun. So it doesn't matter what the author wants to write. Instead, readers decide that they want to read and they get it accordingly. And some hardcore web writers write at least 20,000 Chinese words every day, no exceptions, and even during holidays. I have to add that for those internet, this form of internet writing, those online stories which renewed every day, each ongoing chapter is tailored to the latest feedbacks, and it's synchronized with the reader's appetite in order to be popular, in order to be the clickbait. So I have such a mixed feeling about the professionalization at this level. It's causing me peer pressure instead of pure pleasure of expression and creation. So personally speaking, I only consider the latter as the priority of literature. So to answer the question mentioned earlier, I shall continue writing even without any return or even without anyone to read, because caused by the muse, I am trying to find the original pleasure again, just writing for its own sake. Thank you.
That was fantastic, everyone. We're going to open it up to questions, but please do wait for the microphone so that the people at home can hear you.
Any questions?
Hello, I have a question for all of the writers. As writers, you must be a very keen observer of life and society. And you also must be very curious about life, about people's stories, about everything, past, present, history. So my question is, have you ever come to a point where you feel like, oh, I reached the point that I know everything, or I have written all type of stories. Where is my next step? Where I gonna turn to? So it's like everybody in your own life, you reach the point that you don't know where is your guidance, and you feel disillusioned, you feel disappointed, not just to yourself, but more in general to life around you, society around you, people around you, like it's not like towards one individual or something, but more in general is in your life. So if you ever reach that point, so how do you resolve and pass that point? As a writer, I just want to hear purely from a writer's point of view, because you've been reading so much, you've been reading so much, and then you've been witnessing so much. So just out of curiosity, thank you.
Thank you. Or perhaps I can relate to the question, because it's happened to me if not every day, it's every week. So sometimes we call it a bottleneck or something, but I think it's like a shaft, a chimney. It's the bottleneck is too long that I never see the end sometimes. I'm quite stopped at this point. Not because I already wrote everything. It's because everybody, we standing right, any stories you want to read, any genre, any experiment has already been tried. So what's the left? So, but somehow I gradually found the relief by thinking that, because I love to hiking, to climbing. So once upon a time, I was doing a climbing of the mountain. I suddenly realized that yes, of course, there are Shakespeare's, they are Faulkner, they are Hemingways, those Everests of the world. But I guess the world with only these huge mountains is a looming scenery. It's a rocky view. We still need trees and grasses, like us, like rivers. So the world is more beautiful, more colorful, right? So maybe that somehow is a kind of influence, anxiety of influence. It's a theory mentioned by a scholar. I believe his name is, See, that's the point of talking to writers. So, but I'm trying to find a way to conquer that, and somehow is kind of this chimney, this bottleneck is bothering me all the way long, in future included. So, but I'm just not afraid of it anymore. Oh, come on, Kang Byoung Yoong, you can be better.
Kang
Why me?
Young,
Why always me?
because you are the right wall. You are the right wall of us.
Well, what was the question? So turning point of my life or something, or literary life? I don't know about that, but as you know, I'm not that serious kind of writer like you, but this is my masturbation. So my masturbation is not important than my family, than my society. But if I don't have an energy to masturbate, I will quit. I don't know where is my turning point, how related with my literature and my society and you and my audience, whatever. But just every moment, every time, I would like to enjoy. That's not my answer, if it is possible. Don't be serious, fuck off.
I agree with Seven that yes, because sometimes I always ask myself like there are so many books written in the past, and even if you guys here spend the whole life, even the next few life reading them, you will never lack of books to read. So why do you have to read me? Why do you have to read my books when you have Shakespeare, when you have Hemingway, when you have James Joyce? So it's just a question. I never try to answer it. For me, I don't know if you guys know there's a very weird job, like the expert about the Beatles. And the whole life, they just read about the Beatles, try to find more documentaries about them, and write about them. And for the whole life, they write about the Beatles. This is my dream job. I wish that I can live on writing about just the Beatles, and it's fine for me. Or Roger Federer. So I never think that I know enough about life, because I cannot even tell you what Paul McCartney did yesterday. It's a big deal for me. I'm really haunted by the Beatles, by Roger. I'm sorry to say that, but so I never reached a point when I think that I know everything, as long as I never know what Paul McCartney had lunch yesterday.
Can I add just one thing? So to read a book or books or something like that, some people think like that if you read a lot of books, you can understand society better and deeply. Fuck off. No. This isn't like to make a friends. If you have a lot of friends, you can know a lot of kind of things. No, you need just one real mate, real friends. Reading is also like that in my point of view. If you have one great book, this Aura of the South, you should read 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, like Oku. That is my opinion, to understand society of something, or Roger Federer or Beatles, Paul McCartney, whoever.
Thank you, Young. I know Chan is a very super fan of Roger Federer, but I still have to steal the story from her about Roger. Roger is so-called GOAT, greatest of time, or Big Three. But there was a code, people say there had been Big Four. Do you remember the first one?
Andy Murray.
Andy Murray. And no one remember him now. Yeah, and okay, you remember him. Okay. So I feel sad about Andy Murray because he's one of the Big Four, but now there are only Big Threes. No one mentioned about him. How about the number 5, number 6, number 7, and any other players they have been as a warrior, as Roger Federer does.
No, they're not.
Okay. And they tried maybe they tried harder. They did more training and they spend the whole life to practice, but they are not so talented, gifted as Roger. They are not chosen one. But the most phobia of me is if I am the number 122nd player in tennis world, or if I am the number 1,755 writers around the world, maybe not so in the front. How should I do? Yeah, but I think writing is kind of journey of self-challenge, just like the players on the tennis court, just like the players on the basketball or baseball field. You challenge yourself to see what you see and try hard to do, to see how far you can go. And for me, writing is another a kind of self-description to re-identify myself every day, every year. I was not the same man as yesterday, as last year. I'm a new man every day. And through writing, I describe myself and I discover myself and push me to go further. Thank you.
Sorry to add in, like, this is the philosophy of tennis. This is Roger's philosophy of tennis, but it can be applied to writing. It is never play the competitor, never play the rival, play the game, play the ball.
Yeah, by the way, I love Djokovic and John Lennon.
Who is that?
Think another question?
Joke.
Thank you so much. Because we speak a lot about the muse. And I'm really, I don't know how to deal with this question, but I will try to be less tough. As I always was suspicious about the novelist of the last 100 years, even if they speak about the muse and like this, but I don't see it like that. It's like more like a factory, as I see from my Swedish publisher and the German one, and like this. It's not about a muse, about take this part away, put the character here, deal with that. It's like a maid, something, making money a lot. And to be honest with you, like 3-4 years ago, they were the biggest reading club in Germany chose my book to be ranked number one as the best translated book into German. That didn't make me happy. Later on, I saw that the books from 2 to 7, they were novels. And my book is poetry was number one. And then it was a big celebration for me and all my friends, because we always see that poetry is something, yes, we do slow, we enjoy our day all the day, and then we write some lines, but it is really about the muse and about things. While novels, it is really something, not you specifically, but in general, how it's become in the world. It's like, it's something to bring money, like anything, like television, like cinema. And there's more than to be only talented and like this. So, and this was about the muse. So there's many things here, but like you have agents also and all these things. You know, we don't have. It's a lot actually, but like.
So what is the question?
What's the question?
What was the question to Asian writers?
The question is why you speak about the muse all the time, and I see it is more like professional things, have nothing to do with muse.
Yeah, there was a script, but being deleted for the time, so I can read it now. After all, the muse herself is not an Asian, and maybe dismissive of our prayers. It's more likely that the muse called me more than once, but didn't hear it at all because I didn't know the ancient Greek language. Am I answering you? No.
Yeah, regarding the muse, I think is muse. We can think that is talent, right? Genius, something like that. But hardworking is also part of genius, I think. That's all.
Like Roger.
Yeah, like like a Djokovic, for instance, or John Lennon.
I don't have the answer for the questions, but I just to clarify that I don't earn that much money with my novels.
I guess just different. It's not that compatible, you know. It's like in fine art, they are sculpture, they are oil painting, and they are, you know, it's just different. Although it's considered as fine art, but it's I guess also there are hard workings in poetries, right? I suppose. Okay, anyway, doesn't matter if I will try to be a poet later, and I find it interesting.
Hi, everyone. My question is that writers are historically meant to be introverted, but writing sort of has become, I'd say, a commercial project as well. What do you feel and how do you feel about self-promoting, public speaking? You know, not all of us like the audience so much. So how do you feel about now promoting yourself on social media? Thinking, is it too much? Are you posting too much? You know, what do you feel about that? And I think increasingly even publishers are sort of leaning on the writer's reputation and how they put their promotions forward and how they market their books. Just an opinion from all of you.
I really love your question. It's excruciating for me, you know. It's like a celebrities, or it shouldn't be like that. I choose to write because I'm not good at talking, but we have to talk, you know, a lot to improve your, you know, to make your writings more successful, ironically. I do not like that. I do not preach that. It's just somehow we're, how to say, just we have to do. It's a kind of career, kind of job for me now, not like as the beginning, you know, I just write for fun. So I had such a mixed feeling about it. It's just something I have to do. Like you sell a refrigerator to the customers, and you have to maintain it. It's like a post-producing things you have to do professionally. But personally, I just don't like it. Maybe someone else like it, you know, but just not me. Yeah.
All right, well, we're just about out of time, so I wanted to share some upcoming events. Join us later today at 5 p.m. for our weekly Shamba House reading featuring Nana Abaladze and Ainur Karim. On Sunday at 4 p.m., come to our weekly reading series of Prairie Lights books, writers Jamie Lau and Mohammed Kir, as well as University of Iowa MFA candidate in playwriting Olivia Clement read from their book. Our next Cinema Tech event is this Sunday at 7. We'll be showing the film On the Beach at Night Alone, presented by Kang Byoung Yoong. Join us for a special event in partnership with the University of Iowa Department of Spanish and Portuguese and the University of Iowa Libraries. Writers David Anwar, Joaquin Ortega, Amandina Ramirez Pantanella, Judah Santo Pietro, and Fatima Villalta will read from their works in Spanish. This reading will take place at the University of Iowa Library's main library gallery Monday at 7 p.m. Join us for another special event next Thursday, the 22nd at noon in the University of Iowa main library gallery for a literary conversation between award-winning author and alum of the UI Iowa Writers Workshop, Yi-Yoon Lee, who is the 2022 Ida Beam Distinguished Visiting Scholar. She'll be speaking with IWP Director Christopher Merrill. And of course, please come back next Friday for another presentation from our writers. This panel will discuss migrants as readers. So if we could again, thank you to all of our panelists.